It was February 10th, 2019, in the quiet town of Hudson, Ohio, when something began happening in my dreams that I still can't explain. It started with a sense of dread. Not just fear, but a deep, paralyzing sense that something had attached itself to me, and it didn't come from this world. I was staying at my sister's place for a few weeks after a rough breakup, trying to regroup, trying to sleep again, but instead of healing, my nights unraveled into a waking nightmare that blurred the line between dream and reality. The first dream came suddenly. I was in an empty room, white walls, cold floor, no doors or window, just a mirror in front of me. My reflection wasn't right. It stood still even when I moved. Its smile was too wide, and its eyes black. Not just pupilless black, but like a void that pulled at me. When I woke up, my heart was pounding, and I couldn't shake the image. I brushed it off as stress, but the dream returned the next night. Same room, same mirror. This time, the reflection whispered something I couldn't understand, and the sound kept echoing in my ears even after I woke up. I tried everything. Leaving the lights on, playing soft music, avoiding caffeine, but every night I'd end up in that room. The reflection grew more detailed. I could see bruises on its neck, scratches on its arms, injuries I didn't have, but by the fifth night I woke up with a scratch mark along my shoulder. It wasn't deep, but it was there, fresh and red. My sister saw it too. She thought I'd scratched myself in my sleep, but I wasn't convinced. That night I stayed awake as long as I could, but at some point I drifted off and found myself back in the room. Only now I wasn't alone. Behind my reflection was a figure. Tall, shadow-like, its presence so suffocating I couldn't breathe. The reflection pointed at me, and suddenly the room began closing in. The walls pushed inward. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. My nose was bleeding. I started researching sleep paralysis, night terrors, anything I could find. But nothing explained why my injuries were real, or why I began losing track of time during the day. I'd zone out for hours, and when I came to, I'd find drawings of the room all over my notebooks. I don't remember sketching them. One night, I recorded myself sleeping. The footage showed me sitting up in bed at 3:03 a.m., eyes wide open, whispering the same phrase over and over, "He's coming through." I played that audio for a local paranormal investigator who happened to be giving a talk at the library. She listened and turned pale. She asked where I'd been sleeping. When I told her my sister's address, she froze. That house, she said, was built over the foundations of a home that had burned down in 1932, with a family inside. Only one child had survived, a boy named Elias, and he had vanished shortly after being adopted. He was said to talk to mirrors and claimed someone was inside them trying to bring him back home. I didn't want to believe it, but the dreams worsened. One night my reflection didn't show up at all, just that figure now on my side of the mirror. I couldn't move. It raised a finger, touched the glass, and said my name, my real name. I hadn't heard it in any dream before. The voice was exactly mine. I woke up screaming, but my voice came out delayed, like it was still catching up from the dream. I left my sister's place that morning, slept at a motel 2 towns over. The dreams finally stopped. No mirror, no room, just sleep. A week later, my sister called me, panicked. She said she saw someone in her bedroom mirror, someone who looked just like me, smiling. But I wasn't there. I've never returned to that house, and to this day I cover every mirror before I sleep, because sometimes I still feel like something's watching me. Not from outside, but from inside, waiting to come through. Chapter 2. The Man in the Closet. I was staying at my cousin's farmhouse near Asheville, North Carolina, in June 2022. It was deep in the countryside, surrounded by woods and open fields, and the kind of quiet that feels heavy. My cousin had gone on a work trip and offered me the place for a writing retreat. I thought isolation would spark creativity, but what I got was something entirely different. On the second night, I fell asleep around midnight. I remember because I was listening to a podcast to drown out the rural silence, and it ended just as I started drifting. I had the kind of dream that doesn't just scare you, it pulls you in. I was standing in the exact bedroom I was sleeping in, same layout, same moonlight casting shadows on the floor. But there was one thing different. The closet door was open. In real life, that door was always jammed shut. I'd even tried pulling it open earlier that day and gave up. But in the dream, it was wide open. Inside, there was nothing but blackness. Not shadow, not darkness, absence, a feeling that if I stepped closer, I'd fall in and never stop falling. I couldn't move, but I wasn't paralyzed. It was more like something else was waiting for me to act. I just stood staring at that void. Then something moved deep inside it. I couldn't see it clearly, but it had form. And the sound it made, it wasn't a voice, but it had words. They weren't in English, but I understood them. It said, "Come back." Then I jolted awake. The room was ice cold. My phone said 3:06 a.m. The closet door was still closed. I tried to brush it off as a weird nightmare, stress from writing, maybe the podcast messed with my head. I managed to sleep again, but barely. The next night I dreamed the same dream, but this time I was already in front of the closet, and this time I moved. I stepped into the black. The moment I did, I felt myself falling, not in a gravity sense, but as if I was sinking in time through something older than the house, or even the land. I landed in a hallway made of wet stone. There were no lights, but I could see everything in shades of grey. The walls pulsed. I started walking because I couldn't not walk. At the end of the hallway was a mirror, and in that mirror was my room again. But I wasn't in the reflection. I reached out to touch it, and my reflection stepped forward to meet my hand. Only it wasn't me. Its face had no eyes. Just smooth skin stretched tight, and its mouth curved into a grin that reached where ears should have been. I woke up screaming. My throat was raw. I'd bitten down on my tongue so hard it bled. When I looked at the closet again, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. On the inside edge of the door, where the paint had chipped, were scratch marks like fingernails trying to claw out. I packed up my stuff and left that day. I didn't tell my cousin anything, but a week later I got a call from her. She sounded shaken. She asked if I'd opened the closet while I was there. I hesitated, then asked why. She said she was moving some boxes and found a journal inside, something that didn't belong to her. It was wrapped in cloth. Inside were drawings, pages of them, all of the same figure, a man with no eyes and a grin that split his face. She burned it immediately. I asked her what date was written in the journal. She flipped to the front page. It was dated June 1968. The handwriting on the cover said, "Dreams are the cracks. He walks through." That night I dreamed again. Not of the closet. This time I was in the hallway, but he was behind me. I didn't look. I didn't have to. I could feel that twisted grin stretching, close to my neck, breathing in my ear without lungs. He whispered one word, and I'll never forget how it felt. Promised. That was over a year ago. I've moved since. I've switched beds, burned sage, slept under light, but once in a while I dream I'm in someone else's room, someone I've never met, standing in front of their closet, and I watch from inside it, through the crack in the door, waiting for them to dream. It was early November of last year, and I was staying at a bed and breakfast in northern Vermont, just outside Montpelier. I was on a solo writing retreat, hoping the stillness of the countryside would help me finish the last chapters of my novel. The house was old, rustic, and filled with creaky charm, exactly the kind of place where the silence breathes alongside you. I had the attic room, and the first few nights passed uneventfully, save for the usual settling sounds and old housemates, but on the fourth night something strange happened. I fell asleep just after midnight, and the dream that followed felt more vivid than reality. In the dream, I was still in the same bed, in the same room, only the air had changed. It was thick, like syrup or smoke. I sat up and noticed the attic door slowly creaking open on its own, though in the real world it was always bolted shut. From the blackness of the stairwell, a faint rhythmic sound began to rise, like wet breathing. I should have been scared, but in the dream I felt oddly paralyzed, not in the sleep paralysis way, but like my own curiosity overrode my fear. I stepped out of bed and followed the sound down the attic steps, barefoot on cold wood. Each step creaked under my weight, but the deeper I descended, the louder that wet breath became. The house below was pitch black, except for a faint flicker coming from the kitchen. As I reached the base of the stairs, I could see the shape of someone crouching on the kitchen floor. At first I thought it was a child, its limbs too thin, its back arched unnaturally high. But then I realized it wasn't crouching at all. It was hanging, upside down, from the ceiling like a bat. Its eyes were wide, milk-white, and they locked onto me immediately. I tried to speak or scream, but the sound came out muffled, like my own mouth was stitched shut. The thing dropped to the floor without a sound. It crawled toward me, bones clicking like typewriter keys, faster than I could backpedal. I fell against the stairwell and it stopped inches from my face. Its mouth opened, revealing jagged yellow teeth, but instead of biting, it leaned in and whispered something. I couldn't understand the words. They were guttural, broken, but they carried the force of a command. Then everything went black. I shot awake with a scream. My sheets were damp, heart racing. It was 2:39 a.m. I brushed it off as an unusually lucid nightmare, until I noticed the attic door, unbolted, slightly ajar. I knew I had locked it before bed. I always did. That was when I noticed something on the floor. A single footprint, bare, wet, not mine. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day I asked the B&B owner about the attic door. She assured me no one else had access to that floor. It had always been used for guests, and the door didn't even open from the outside without a special key. She even walked me through the mechanism, metal latch deadbolt, and a rusted keyhole no one had touched in years. I let it go and tried to get back to writing, but something about that dream, it wouldn't leave me, especially the whisper. I started hearing it again faintly when I was awake. Every time I stood near a mirror or closed my eyes to blink too long, it was like it was bleeding into my waking life. By the 6th night, I had started locking the attic door with a chair under the handle. It didn't help. I woke again, 3:11 a.m., to the sound of it creaking open. This time I stayed in bed, frozen under the covers. The room was filled with the same heavy air from my dream. I didn't look, but I could feel something standing at the foot of the bed. Not moving, just breathing, wet, deliberate and wrong. Then the mattress dipped slightly, like someone had knelt beside me. I clenched my eyes shut. After what felt like hours, morning finally broke, and light poured into the room. There were no footprints, no signs of forced entry, but the wet spot remained, right where the dip had been. The final night, I decided to leave. I packed everything, even though I'd only reserved the room until morning. But before I could go, I passed out on the couch from sheer exhaustion. I had one last dream. In it, I was strapped to the bed, mouth sewn shut, surrounded by mirrors. The hanging figure was back, hovering just above me, whispering louder this time. I finally understood the words. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. You dreamed me real. I woke up to the sound of the front door slamming shut on its own. I was alone again, daylight streaming through the old curtains, but the mirror across the hall had a new crack in it, one I hadn't seen before. And in the corner of that mirror, I swear I could still see those milk-white eyes watching me leave. Thanks for joining me on this terrifying journey through the world of haunting dreams that felt all too real. If these stories kept you up or made you question your next night's sleep, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you never miss the next spine-chilling tale. Stay curious and careful what you dream of.